New details have been coming out throughout the day about the recruitment of Washington State transfer quarterback Cam Ward. Here's how it affects the Miami Hurricanes.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back for the second time today. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first and second listen and your first and second watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts, free on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. A report came out midday today on Thursday. It's getting Miami Hurricanes fans really excited about the possibility of a Cam Ward visit as early as this weekend. This was reported at On3.com, one of the top recruiting sites, of course, by Pete Nakos of On3. He wrote a big rundown on some of the top portal quarterbacks, people like Kyle McCord, DJ Uyunglele, Riley Leonard, Cam Ward, some of the other top players in the portal, and updated their status. Here's what he writes about Ward, and there's definitely a big Miami tie-in here. He says, as On3 reported earlier this week, Florida State, Miami, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Wisconsin, and USC emerged as names to watch throughout Cam Ward's recruitment. As of Wednesday night, he writes, On3 can confirm that the Buckeyes and Ward have not had a formal conversation. That's interesting because a lot of people just assumed he's going to Ohio State, right? Apparently, they've not even really talked yet. He continues, there has been contact with Wisconsin, and another source told On3 that plans are in the works for a possible Cam Ward visit to Miami this weekend. Now, we've been saying this for a long time, a week, 2 weeks. Time moves differently inside the transfer portal. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is, but we've been saying for a long time, Cam Ward is the number one priority target for the Miami Hurricanes at quarterback. Obviously, you have to have other options out there because a lot of people want Cam Ward, but this is the one Miami is focusing on. And the idea of him possibly making a visit really soon get a lot of people excited. Now, I don't want to rain on the parade, okay? But at least part of that report may not be completely accurate, okay? And I hope I'm wrong about this, but here's something else that we know about Ward that the author of that report may not have been aware of, or, for whatever reason, he overlooked this detail. Ward, we know he's going to be a graduate transfer. He's getting his diploma from Washington State. He's literally graduating this weekend. The ceremony is happening this weekend. So maybe a visit to Miami is in the works for him. Maybe right after, if the ceremony's on Saturday, maybe he catches a red eye and comes right down to South Florida. I'm not so sure about the timing, right? Because I don't know if he's going to skip his graduation to come down here, or maybe the report is off by a couple days. Maybe he gets here on Sunday or Monday. But hopefully everything there is on the level and that Ward does visit because, talking to some people who give me good recruiting information and recruiting notes, there seems to be a feeling in certain circles that, Miami is definitely right there in the mix for Ward. We mentioned a lot of different teams that are vying for his services, but it's my understanding that Miami, along with USC and Ohio State, might be the three favorites from his side. That those may be, and listen, obviously, I don't know where exactly Miami stands within those three, but that Miami, USC, and Ohio State might feel like the three most likely for him right now. And then from a Miami standpoint, Ward is the top target. With Will Howard from Kansas State being probably target 1B or target number 2, and Kyle McCord from Ohio State may also be in that mix, but I certainly don't think that he is the top target right now for Miami. So again, I don't know if the visit's going to be happening this weekend or maybe early next week, but Obviously, the idea of Ward, who I believe is the most dynamic quarterback right now in the transfer portal and can have a big-time one-year impact at Miami, he may be working on a visit real soon. And I think there's definitely mutual interest there. So we'll see how this one plays out. Here's what this On3 report says about a few of the other prominent targets out there. We've been talking about Dante Moore from UCLA the past couple of days. I don't think like Miami is as interested in Moore as they are in other targets like Ward. They write the former 5-star plus recruit in UCLA transfer quarterback officially entered the portal Monday night. Speaking with a source close to Dante Moore, they write, the top requirement for a school will have to check off to land the quarterback is the opportunity to be developed, not to start immediately, to be developed. They say Michigan has been in touch with Moore. That would make sense because he's a Detroit native. On3's Chad Simmons reported on Wednesday night that Miami, Oregon, and Ohio State are emerging also as schools to watch. Moore was once an Oregon commit before flipping to UCLA. And since we've been talking a lot about Kyle McCord this week, and by the way, for the we don't want McCord crowd, which is a lot of Miami fans that I talk to, like you don't want McCord to come here. This is probably pretty good news because I don't see Miami being mentioned very prominently in this report. They say sources have told On3 that Kyle McCord is looking for a spot that will continue to help him develop for the NFL. Sources have said a number of schools have been in contact with the former 5-star recruit, including Syracuse. Nebraska offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield flew to Columbus on Tuesday to visit with McCord. This recruitment is still wide open, he says. Sources have said McCord does not want to rush this process. A timetable hasn't been set, but he will take visits. Now, in the case of any of the quarterbacks Miami is after, the timetables are going to frustrate some people, okay? Because the priorities are different on both sides. If you're Miami, you want to have a quarterback as quickly as possible for a number of different reasons, some of them more obvious than others. National Signing Day is coming up in a couple of weeks. I know that a lot of the players you're recruiting aren't really thinking about just 1 year. They're thinking about multiple years, but still, you'd like to have your quarterback position and your offense solidified before National Signing Day, just so you can show recruits exactly what you bring to the table for next year. And also, the sooner you get your quarterback, the sooner you stop worrying about getting a quarterback. Because if you're going after a quarterback who wants to wait 3-4 more weeks to make a decision, you're worried, what if I wait on his timetable and then by the time he decides, there's nobody left, right? And a guy like Cam Ward has that luxury. If you're Ward and there's, probably close to a dozen teams with legitimate, like, realistic interest in him, maybe a little less than a dozen, but there's almost double-digit teams that are in the running for him, supposedly. If you're Ward, you say, okay, I'm going to find a good spot. If I make them wait, they're going to wait for me because I'm Cam freaking Ward. Like, that's the way he looks at it, right? So, obviously, if you're Miami and you desperately, I will say you desperately need a quarterback. Every time I say that, people are like, why are you so disrespectful to Emory Williams and Jakari Brown? Maybe we have our quarterback one already. Maybe. I don't know if I want to take that gamble, right? Because, Jakari Brown hasn't played a meaningful snap in 2 years. Emory Williams is so very young and so very much in need of seasoning, in my opinion. I think he can be a great one. I think Jakari also has a ton of potential. Just, I look at Miami as having a really, really good competitive roster. And, if you guys, all of you, you want to win more than 7 games next year, right? You want to talk about maybe double-digit wins and an ACC championship appearance, title game appearance, something like that. The best way to get there is to have an experienced quarterback manage this really, really good roster for next year instead of, a quarterback who throws double-digit interceptions like Van Dyke or, a quarterback who's just, going to go through some growing pains because they're really young, like Emory Williams or Jakari Brown. That's why I think Miami really needs a veteran transfer quarterback. So that's where I'm at on that. There's an interesting quote from a Hurricanes recruiting target at quarterback. And I also, not only do I think Miami needs a quarterback in the transfer portal, I would like to get 2 true freshmen. I love Judd Anderson, who's verbally committed. I think he's potentially going to be a really good one here. But Miami, as we know, is also trying to flip CJ Bailey, the quarterback at Chaminade-Madonna, who just had an awesome senior season, just won himself a state championship, and he was throwing it all over the place against Clearwater Central Catholic today. I'm not even sure what the final score was. The last that I was watching the game up until 35-0, and it was CJ Bailey throwing dimes, Jeremiah Smith, and our guy JoJo Trader catching touchdowns left and right, including JoJo doing an awesome job with his footwork, getting his feet down, back of the end zone, NFL-style catch. If you guys haven't seen it, it's all over social media. Check out the JoJo Trader touchdown catch. It was fantastic. But Miami is trying – they're trying to get 2 quarterbacks in the class. Judd Anderson, who's already committed, plus they'd like to get CJ Bailey. He's verbally committed to NC State. So Manny Navarro, who I think was at the state championship game, or at least covering it today, wrote an updated quote here about CJ. So CJ Bailey, Manny writes, Dave Doran, the NC State head coach, and 2 NC State staffers were out to watch CJ Bailey today. He asked Bailey post-game about it. He said, quote, it's great to see my coach out here. Great to put on a show for him. What about Miami? He was asked. CJ responded, it's iffy right now. We'll see on signing day. Whoo! See, the thing is, like, I don't know how to read into that. So, like, he's acknowledging the door is at least cracked open for Miami, right? Because, you know, as a North Carolina State commit, he could have just said, I'm a Wolf or a member of the Wolf. I don't know how you would say, I'm a Wolfpack. I'm a Wolf. Like, he could have just shot it down like, hey, I'm committed to NC State. It is what it is. Like, he at least left the door open. We'll see on signing day. So you can take that as a positive. We know Miami has been putting the work there in recent weeks on CJ Bailey. The question I have is, did Miami get in too late when Dave Doran and company have been putting in the work on him just a lot longer for NC State? They valued him going back to last year. Miami's really come on for him this year. But South Florida kid, 2 of his teammates, and Zaquan Patterson and JoJo Trader are already committed to Miami. Miami is trying to flip Jeremiah Smith. So honestly, you could get like half of that Chaminade team, which is a powerhouse team. You could get half that team in recruiting this year. I would be happy. I would be really, really happy to see that. So at least Bailey like left the door open for Miami to be considered here. And listen, if you're on social media this afternoon, I know there's been like, you know, the social media insiders, sometimes they're right, sometimes, you know, they're not, you know, you never know. But there's been some buzz today about Miami, you know, getting the spatulas out and maybe getting another big flip this week. I have an idea on who that could be. I don't know if I'm thinking about the same person that the social media insiders are talking about, but I think it's going to be a busy week. And it's the kind of week where, you know, if something doesn't happen tonight, you never know. Like we're on flip watch. We are on recruit watch. For as much as we talk about the transfer portal on this show this week, you realize we're 13 days away from National Signing Day. We are less than 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. So, guys, I appreciate you tuning in for this afternoon, evening update on the latest on Cam Ward, the latest on some of these transfer portal quarterbacks, on these recruit quarterbacks. And make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel, Locked On Canes. If you listen to the audio version, which is great because you can take us with you wherever you go, make sure to subscribe and hit 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.